Hello, and welcome back to Attack on Titan Enthusiast. Betrayal is something that comes up a lot in the story of Attack on Titan. This video is going to focus on these instances of betrayal and the traitors who commit them. When you hear the word traitor, who's the first character from Attack on Titan you think of? It might be Reiner, but when you pay attention to the story as a whole, there are quite a few characters who've betrayed others. I want to go over the strange actions taken by 6 characters in total, including Reiner. And some of these are definitely instances of betrayal or could be considered foreshadowing for future betrayals. Please be aware, this video may contain spoilers up to the final chapter of the manga. Reiner. Reiner is the heir to the Armored Titan and was a spy sent to the island by Marley. At the beginning of the story, he acted as if he had nothing to do with the Titans. But in reality, he was the reason the wall was broken down 5 years prior. So the invasion of the Titans, that was all him. His true identity was revealed along with Bertolt's in chapter 42 of volume 10. But before we get to this point, Reiner had been acting very suspicious a number of times throughout the story. Let's go over some of his strangest moments. Reiner being proud of getting 2nd place in his class. When the graduation ceremony for the 104th class of cadets was shown in the 2nd chapter of the 1st volume, the top 10 trainees with the best results were announced. The 2nd to 4th place winners were Reiner, Bertolt, and Annie, and they were all Marleyan warriors who had been sent to Paradis Island as spies. They had been trained from a very young age, so it's no surprise they outperformed all the other students. Mikasa was number 1, and she was a member of the Ackerman clan, humans that can possess the same level of power as Titans, and Eren was number 5, a child who had been sent by his father to fight for the future of Eldia. He had inherited the power of both the Founding Titan and the Attack Titan, so the top 5 were all in one way or another using the power of the Titans. Annie and Bertolt were even trying not to stand out, but they still ended up placing in the top 5. Reiner, on the other hand, was said to have had mediocre grades when he was training as a warrior in Marley. So he might have been happy to be finally getting good grades. If Bertolt and Annie were actually trying, I don't think there's any way they would have placed lower than Reiner. Reiner's unnatural behavior. In chapter 9 of volume 2 alone, Reiner acts in an unusual manner several times. When the Titan form of Eren appears in front of him for the first time, he asks Connie, "What do you know about that Titan?" Reiner was in a hurry to get answers because he knew that was one of the 9 Titans. Connie just brushed him off, saying that they could worry about stuff like that if they managed to survive. Next, while everyone was celebrating that Armin's plan had succeeded, Reiner says to Annie, "That was a close one. I'm glad you didn't get hurt." He was overly worried about her, even though she wasn't in any particularly dangerous situation. This was because Annie was the heir to the female Titan, and if she got injured in any way, she might have to use her Titan powers to recover. There was a possibility that her identity could be exposed to those around her. Reiner miraculously escaping death. In chapter 23 of volume 6, Reiner and his team were on an expedition outside the wall when they were attacked by Annie, who had transformed into the female Titan. Annie was heading for the right wing of the formation to capture Eren, because this was the information Reiner had given to Annie. However, Commander Erwin suspected that there was possibly a traitor within the scouts. Reiner and the others were given false information, and Armin noticed this. Listening to Armin, Reiner asks where he thinks Eren really is. Then he pretends to be captured by the female Titan, while he writes Eren's location on Annie's palm with his blade, and then stages a miraculous escape. Annie sees the information written on her palm and heads for Eren's true location. All of this was later shown to us in Volume 10, Chapter 42, when Reiner's true identity is exposed. Reiner pretending he can't read herring. In Volume 9, Chapter 38, while scavenging for food, Ymir finds a can that has the word herring written on it. However, the characters were unreadable to the people from inside the walls. When Reiner tried to read the characters on the can, he was surprised and said, "Does this say herring?" Then he asked Ymir how she can read this. At first glance, this seems to just be a scene showing that Ymir was really not a person from inside the walls. But Reiner's reaction was just as strange. Reiner is also from outside the walls, but at this point, he doesn't know Ymir's background. That's why he noticed when Ymir could read the letters that people inside the walls shouldn't be able to. I think he was pretending to be unable to read in order to find out Ymir's true identity. But the real mystery is, people inside the walls have never even been to the sea, so they shouldn't even know what a herring is. If someone else was in his position, before asking how she could read the can, they would have asked what a herring was. The fact that he didn't ask Ymir this means that he knew what a herring was. And so, this was a scene exposing not only the true identity of Ymir, but also Reiner. The Rite of Passage. In Chapter 15 of Volume 4, Keith Shadis was conducting a type of training for new recruits called the Rite of Passage. At that time, characters like Eren, Mikasa, Bertolt, Annie, and Ymir were said to have already completed this Rite of Passage, and it was showing on their faces. All 6 of them did have one thing in common. They'd all experienced life or death situations in their childhoods. Eren and Mikasa had already experienced killing people and losing their parents when they were young. Reiner, Bertolt, and Annie had all inherited the Titan's powers in Marley and were forced to train very hard from an early age. It's only natural that their postures and the look in their eyes would be different compared to the newbie soldiers. Reiner interrupting Connie. In Volume 9, Chapter 38, Connie is in a village where everything's been destroyed by the Titans. He finds his parents' house and a fallen Titan on top of it, and tries to tell Reiner that the Titan looks like his mother. Reiner interrupts him and says that he's wasting valuable time. He was trying to hide the fact that the Titans were originally human, so he wouldn't be revealed as a spy. Later, Connie tries to bring it up again, and Reiner interrupts him a second time. Reiner's cheeks were covered in a cold sweat, which showed that he was very nervous. Reiner being questioned by Bertolt. In Chapter 39 of Volume 10, Reiner risks his life to protect Connie, and gets his arm broken when it's bitten by a Titan. Connie sees how reliable he is and asks Bertolt, "Has he always been like this?" Bertolt replies, "No, he used to be a warrior, but not anymore." Reiner was said to have 2 personalities. One was the warrior of Marley, which was his original role, and the other was the soldier that he developed while working as a member of the Scouts. Bertolt pointed this out to him and then asked him, "Reiner, what are you now?" Reiner was acting as if he had forgotten that he was a Marleyan warrior. Bertolt probably couldn't tell what Reiner was thinking anymore. That's how mentally unstable he had become. Bertolt. Like Reiner, Bertolt was a warrior from Marley and the heir to the colossal Titan. In Chapter 41 of Volume 10, he's shown almost biting his hand in what could have been considered an attempt to transform into a Titan. This scene takes place in the tower where Bertolt and the others were taking refuge to escape from the Titans. After Ymir had transformed into the Jaw Titan, she climbed to the top of the tower where everyone was to help them escape. Of course, it is possible that his hand just happened to be in that position at the time, but up until now, this sort of hand-biting gesture was only used when Eren was about to transform into a Titan. Bertolt had already been attacked by Ymir once when he was a boy, and his fellow warrior Marcel was eaten. Based on that, it's possible that this was just an unconscious reflex he made because he was still afraid of this titan, Annie. Like Reiner, Annie was also a warrior from Marley and the heir to the female titan. Annie has always been a cool and reserved type of character, but there were a few instances where she showed unusual behavior. In Volume 2, Chapter 7, when Reiner and the others were in a dangerous situations with titans swarming near them, Annie asks Reiner, "What are you going to do?" And Reiner replies, "We wait, at least until they gather round." Bertolt, who's also next to Reiner, is looking at him in a suspicious way. Reiner and the others want to break down the walls and let even more titans in. This was what Annie was really asking Reiner about. And Reiner was responding that he wanted more titans to come in before they carried out the plan. Marco, overhearing but not understanding their conversation and asking what they were dying for, definitely has a deeper meaning when rereading the story. Annie saying she wants to save Eren. In Chapter 9 of Volume 2, when Eren in Titan form was attacked by the Pure Titans and was just about to be defeated, Mikasa and Reiner strongly insisted on saving Eren. At this point, no one knew that Eren was fighting as a Titan. It should have been seen as convenient for the Titans to be killing each other. But it was obvious to Reiner and his fellow warriors that this was an intelligent Titan. They wanted to help him in order to bring his power back to Marley. Also, if Eren was eaten by a pure Titan, his Titan would have been passed down. All of the trainees present would have been able to see information that Reiner and the others didn't want them to know. That's why Annie supports Reiner in saying that it might become an ally. Considering the personality she'd had up until this point, it was strange for her to have such an opinion in this scene. Annie looking at Bertolt. In Volume 4, Chapter 15, Eren, who once witnessed the Armor Titan and the Colossal Titan, is asked by the people around him what they looked like. In this scene, Bertolt is shown in the background when he's talking about the Colossal Titan, and Reiner is shown in the background when he's talking about the Armored Titan. While he's talking about the Titans, you can see Bertolt listening in, but if you look closely, you can see that Annie is also drawn as if she's listening in. But unlike everyone else who's looking at Eren as they listen, she's looking right at Bertolt. She might have been worried that Eren was going to find out their true identities. Annie covering the nape of her neck. In Volume 4, Chapter 17, there's a scene where Eren and some of the other 104th cadets are training their fighting skills. Here, Reiner gets Eren and Annie to fight. Annie, who excels in martial arts, defeats Eren and Reiner in the blink of an eye with her special techniques. When the female Titan appears later in the story, it uses Annie's fighting techniques, completely exposing her true identity. Back in this scene, before the female Titan had appeared, there was actually foreshadowing within her fighting technique that she was the female Titan. Just look at the stance she used when she was fighting Eren. As Eren charges towards her, she puts her left hand over the nape of her neck for no reason. But she wasn't doing some kind of JoJo pose. She covered her nape because this was how she had trained to fight as the female Titan. So, of course she would protect her weakest point. This moment was definitely hinting at her true identity as a Titan shifter. Pieck. Pieck Finger was the heir to the Cart Titan and another warrior from Marley. She approached Eren in Volume 29, Chapter 116, and negotiated to become his collaborator, but then quickly betrayed him. To prove to Eren that she's an ally, Pieck heads for the rooftop, promising to give him the locations of her other comrades hiding in the town. At this point, it seemed as if she was about to turn from Marley to Eren's side, but this was all part of Marley's plan. Eren is led to the rooftop by Pieck, where he gets ambushed by Porco, the Jaw Titan. She didn't pretend to be one of them for very long before she betrayed them, but there was a hidden moment that hinted at the betrayal right before it happened. Before going to the rooftop, Pieck waves hello to the Jaegerists below her. It turns out that some of those soldiers were actually Pieck's comrades, who would later launch a surprise attack on Eren, working with the heir to the Jaw Titan, Porco Galliard, who was among those soldiers, looking nervous. So, Pieck smiling and waving at the Jaegerists wasn't her trying to appeal to them. She was letting her undercover comrades know that it was time to carry out the mission. It was a great hint to Pieck's future betrayal of Eren. Even though it didn't take long for it to happen, I still really appreciate these small details. Zeke. Eren's older brother, Zeke, showed his treachery many times in the story. First, as a child, he betrayed his own parents, turning them into Marley for being Eldian restorationists. After that, he inherited the power of the Beast Titan and acted as if he had sworn allegiance to Marley. Then, when Eren secretly met him, he joined forces with him and betrayed Marley. Although he didn't betray Marley until chapter 105, there's actually a lot of foreshadowing that alludes to this betrayal. Let's look at the cover of volume 23. Reiner, Gabby, and the other characters are all loyal to Marley. But among them, you can see that Zeke is the only one looking back. The fact that he's shown looking in a different direction from the other characters is a common way of foreshadowing future betrayals that's often used in covers of manga and in openings and endings to anime. Perhaps the fact that only Zeke's back is turned means that he is disobeying Marley. Next, in volume 24, chapter 97, Zeke is alone. He's sitting in a chair with his feet up on the desk, with a telephone receiver in one hand and a cigarette in the other. Just before that, we have the conversation between Willie Tiber and Captain McGath. And after that, the scene where Falco puts the letter in the mailbox at Eren's request. There's no details given for why Zeke was shown at this time, but one possible explanation is that he was eavesdropping on the conversation between McGath and Willie. Or it could be that he was communicating with Eren. In chapter 95, when the conversation in Zeke's room is being listened to because it's been bugged so that they can investigate the thoughts and ideas of the Marleyan warriors. A telephone similar to the one Zeke used is also in this scene. This could suggest that this type of phone was used for eavesdropping. But either way, this scene with Zeke on the phone was definitely symbolizing his disobedience to Marley. In chapter 98, Eren was shown with a baseball glove that he says was given to him by a family member. Zeke was also shown playing catch with Colt using a similar glove. In other words, it was Zeke who had given Eren the glove. So they had already been in contact with each other. Finally, in chapter 99, Yelena, who's working with Zeke and Eren, disguises herself as a bearded Marleyan soldier and has Zeke led in a different direction, while only Pieck and Porco were led into the pit trap. I'm sure Pieck would have later started to suspect Zeke, seeing how he was the only one who wasn't trapped. Eren Yeager, the main character, also betrayed other people in several different parts of the story. What we'll focus on here is Eren's betrayal of Zeke. When Eren infiltrated Marley and was told by Zeke about the Eldian euthanization plan, he pretended to agree with it. The Eldian euthanization plan was a plan created by Zeke to use the founding Titan's power to change Eldians' bodies so that they couldn't produce children anymore. If they don't have any more children, the Eldians that currently exist will eventually grow old and die, and none will replace them. This way, eventually, all Eldians will become extinct from the earth without having to kill any, and there will be no one to inherit the power of the Titans. Eren made a statement in chapter 115, which made it seem like he was going to follow the plan. However, Eren was only pretending to accept Zeke's proposal in order to obtain the power of the Founding Titan. In chapter 120, he abruptly betrays Zeke, saying he could never accept such a messed up plan. Back when Eren first agreed with Zeke's euthanization plan, Zeke said that he'd like to shake hands with him, but it's not a good idea for them to be in contact right now. And he tossed a ball to him instead and said they would be sure to save everyone. The scene up to this point was showed in chapter 115. But in chapter 120, we see that Eren drops the ball that's passed to him. After he drops it, he blames his slow reflexes on sitting in the hospital for too long. But in reality, this was foreshadowing of Eren's refusal to accept Zeke's euthanization plan. In Attack on Titan, the act of handing something to someone has a symbolic meaning in many different scenes. For example, in the last chapter, when Armin hands Eren the seashell. For Armin, who dreamed of seeing the ocean, that shell was something that was very important to him. That's why he gave it to Eren. When Eren first went to the ocean, he was deep in his thoughts and feelings, and didn't really even pay attention to the ocean itself. And Armin wasn't able to hand the seashell to him then. But in the last chapter, Eren finally gave his attention to the shell after completing his mission, after becoming free. In this same way, something that was very dear to Zeke was the ball he used to play catch with Mr. Sava. And the euthanization plan was something that Zeke and Mr. Sava had came up with in the first place. So Zeke passing Eren the ball he was so attached to was symbolizing him and trusting and sharing the euthanization plan with him. But Eren didn't properly receive the ball, implying that he didn't agree with Zeke's plan and would betray him. I really love how so much meaning is put into these small moments. And there are many similar moments to this one in Attack on Titan. That's all for this video. If you have any favorite moments that hold a deeper hidden meaning, please tell me about it in the comments. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you again in the next video.